Why am I doing this? Parsing the paragraph. There are a few reasons why I'm doing this. One is because there are a lot of stories and books that I am reading, and I want to encourage not only Black men, but individuals from our community to read these books, to process them, to allow these books to read them and develop them. And I know a lot of the times we won't do that unless someone starts for us, starts with us, ask us to do it along with them. The second reason, this is my chance to throw boiling water in the face of the quote, if you want to hide something from a Negro, put it in a book. The third reason is these are some of my favorite stories, some of my favorite books. And the first one we will be starting with today is an American memoir by the title of Heavy by Kiese Laymon. And this was one of my favorite books of 2024. So much of my favorite book that I could not imagine not taking the time to share this with other Black men. The reason why I want to share this is because I believe that the Black male experience many times is haunted by a parental figure that we rarely talk about. And that's our mothers. That we talk about the epidemic of Black fathers not showing up. We talk about how we are missing fathers in our community, but we don't talk about the internal turmoil, challenges, damages, joys, confusion, clarity of process that we go through with our mothers. And one of the things that I love about Kiese Laymon's journey is the honesty that he has about this relationship with his mother. A large part of this memoir is about a relationship with his mother. And so I just want to take a second to read and converse and reflect through this book. And we're going to start with the introduction today. The name of the introduction is Ben. Ben. B-E-E-N. Ben. I did not want to write to you. I wanted to write a lie. I did not want to write honestly about Black lies, Black thighs, Black loves, Black laughs, Black foods, Black addictions, Black stretch marks, Black dollars, Black words, Black abuses, Black blues, Black belly buttons, Black wins, Black bins, Black bends, Black consent, Black parents, or Black children. I did not want to write about us. I wanted to write an American memoir. I wanted to write a lie. I wanted to do that old Black work of pandering and lying to folk who pay us to pander and lie to them every day. I wanted to write about our family's relationships to simple carbohydrates, deep fried meats, and high fructose corn syrup. I wanted the book to begin with my weighing 319 pounds and end with my weighing 165 pounds. I wanted to pepper the book with acerbic warnings to us fat Black folk in the Deep South and saccharine sentimental exhortations from Grandmama. I did not want you to laugh. I wanted to write a lie. I wanted to write about how fundamental present Black fathers, responsible Black mothers, magical Black grandmothers, and perfectly disciplined Black children are to our liberation. I wanted to center a someone who wants us dead and dishonest. I wanted white Americans who have proven themselves even more unwilling to confront their lies, to reconsider how their lies limit our access to good love, healthy choices, and second chances. I wanted the book to begin and end with the assumption that if white Americans reckon with their insatiable appetites for Black American suffering, and we reckon with our insatiable appetites for unhealthy food, we could all be ushered into a reformed era of American prosperity. I wanted to create a fantastic literary spectacle. I wanted that literary spectacle to ask nothing of you, Grandmama, or me other than our adherence to a low carb diet, limited sugar, weightlifting, 12,000 steps a day, gallons of waters, and no eating after midnight. I wanted you to promise. I did not want you to remember. I wanted to write a lie. I wanted that lie to be titillating. I wrote that lie. It was titillating. You would have loved it. I discovered nothing. You would have loved it. I started over and wrote what we hoped I'd forget. Pause. I think the first part of this introduction is so powerful because it doesn't take us long to get to the truth. Writing the truth is hard. Writing the truth sometimes for some of us is unbearable. Now, all of us aren't writers, so we don't write the truth, but rehearsing the truth, remembering the truth, processing the truth. And instead of processing that truth, we decide that a lie will do, that a lie is easier, that a lie doesn't make us go as deep into the wounds that we have finally covered up and are trying to hide. I think that's what we get from the author in the beginning of this introduction. He says, I did not want to write what I am writing to you. I wanted to write a lie. And in fact, I wrote that lie. And that lie was titillating. And the lie was good. So much so that the audience that he's writing to, he says, you would have loved it. But even though you would have loved it, I discovered nothing. Nothing changed about me. Nothing grew. That's one of the problems that we have with our lives, that we don't grow in our lives. We actually deteriorate in our lives. Let's continue. I was 11 years old, 5'9", 208 pounds when you told me to stand still and act like your husband. You just given me your daddy's musty brown brim, $5, and the directive to play the slot machine next to yours. We were under the stars on the Vegas Strip celebrating the only Christmas we've ever spent away from Grandmama's shotgun house in Forest, Mississippi. Instead of sliding my $5 in the machine, I put the money in the pocket of my Raider starter jacket. After 4 pulls, I remember 260 quarters splashing the tin catcher in front of you. We looked over our right shoulders. We looked over our left shoulders. We got on our knees. We raked more quarters than I'd ever seen into the warped white cup. Rake, Key, you said, rake. I love how you used rake to describe what we were doing. When you wrapped my hands in yours and told me to hold the cup steady, I was convinced that we were the luckiest Black couple in Las Vegas. Pause. That's a hard feeling to think about as a Black man. Because the truth is, a lot of us were coupled with our mothers and not raised by them. Coupled meaning we became more of what they hoped for when it came to them being loved by men, than more than what they hoped for when it came to them loving their sons. Notice he said in the beginning of this, I was 11 years old, 5'9", 208 pounds when you told me to stand still and act like your husband. And one of the things about boys is they're going to play the part for their mamas. And then he gets to this point, I was convinced that we were the luckiest Black couple in Las Vegas. Even though we were winning, even though we just won, you did not look at me. You kept pulling that handle and looking behind you. Just one more minute, you said. I think I can hit again. I promise, just one more minute. Every time you promised, I believed you. 11 years old in the middle of a casino, acting like the husband of his mother, winning and feeling the joy of the luckiest Black couple in Las Vegas. Just one more minute, just one more minute. I believed you. I told Grandmama about all the quarters we raked when we got back to Aunt Linda's apartment that night. Grandmama didn't say a word. She looked her twitching eyes past me, found your eyes, and said, is that right? Didn't nan one of them casinos build themselves? They all built off of some fool's money. End quote. You slept on a slender pallet that night in Vegas. I was supposed to be sleeping next to you, but I couldn't because I was so happy. Your snores reminded me that you were alive. If you were alive and next to me, I had everything in the world I could ever want. When we got back from Vegas, you used some of those quarters in that warped white cup to buy an extra tennis racket. The first time we played at Callaway High School, we were volleying when the sound of an M80 distracted us. We looked towards the school and saw a black woman in a faded jean jacket on one knee. She was wiping the blood from her nose in front of a slender black man in a short blue members only jacket. Put them hands down, we heard that man say. The woman in the faded jean jacket slowly dropped her hands, and the man hit her in the face with what sounded like a loose, soggy fist. The woman in the faded jean jacket fell to the ground, murmured something to the man, and covered her face. Without saying a word, we cocked our rackets and sprinted toward the couple. Motherfucker, you screamed as the man pulled the woman up. You better not hit her again, motherfucker. When the man saw us coming after him, he dragged the woman off through the dirt path. Motherfucker, I yelled and looked for confirmation. That cussing in front of you was okay. On the other side of the building, the man and the woman in the faded jean jacket whose face he exploded got in a raggedy black Mazda. She put on her seatbelt and they sped off. We didn't call the police. We didn't run back to our Nova. We caught our breath. We held hands. We got on our knees. I never prayed in the middle of that kind of anger or fear. I knew we were praying for the safety of the woman in the jean jacket. I assumed we were also praying for ourselves. This is amazing to me, and how he catches this contrasting scene of this woman being domestically abused, of bystanders coming to help her. She's probably in one of the most dangerous situations in her life. She gets in a car with a busted face, blood all over her. Still not finds a way, but is trapped in the kind of psychology, mentality to be in the most dangerous situation of her life and not leave that situation, but get in a car and put her seatbelt on. It amazes me when I read that part that she is in the middle of a domestic violence dispute. And he says on the other side of the building, the man and the woman in the faded jean jacket whose face he exploded got in a raggedy black Mazda. She put on her seatbelt and they sped off. 11 years old, acquainted with acting like the husband to his mother, acquainted with feeling like the happiest couple in Las Vegas with his mother. Those gambling proceeds buy him a tennis racket, and it's the reason why he is at this playground, this tennis court, playing tennis with his mother. They are volleying, and now he's introduced to this insane and confusing scene of domestic violence. One of the things that I don't think we consider when it comes to our Black boys and our Black men is not only what they think about in their own minds and what actions they carry out with their own hands about who they are, but do we take the time to talk to them and allow them to process about what they've seen with their eyes? Do we take the time to talk with them and ask them about what they feel with their hearts? How are your relationships at home? What kind of relationship do you and your mama have? You and your grandmama have? Who do you feel closest to? Who do you feel furthest from? If there was somebody that you can spend the rest of your days with, who would it be? I never prayed in the middle of that kind of anger or fear. What's the most challenging situation you've had? Let me continue. I never prayed in the middle of that kind of anger or fear. I knew we were praying for the safety of the woman in the jean jacket. I assumed we were also praying for ourselves. If we could have touched that man, he would have suffered. We would have killed him. I realized that day that we didn't simply love each other. We were of two vastly different generations of blackness, but I was your child. We had the same husky thighs, short arms, full cheeks, bushy insides, and mixed imagination. We were excellent at working until our bodies gave out, excellent at laughing and laughing and laughing until we didn't. We were excellent at hiding and misdirecting, swearing up and down we were naked when we were fully clothed. Are you really seeing? Manufactured transparency is what he's talking about. Let me read that again. We were excellent at working until our bodies gave out, excellent at laughing and laughing and laughing until we didn't. We were excellent at hiding and misdirecting, swearing up and down we were naked when we were fully clothed. Our heartbeat was so thick. Once punctured, though, we waltzed those hearts into war without a plan of escape. No matter how terrified or hurt we were, we didn't dare ask anybody for help. We stewed. We remembered. We heaved like two hawks. We resented everyone who watched us suffer. We trapped ourselves in for the next disaster, knowing that we had no proof we would always recover. Trapped ourselves in for the next disaster, knowing though we had no proof we would always recover. From trauma to trauma to trauma, we'll experience together. What's your disaster? Is it eviction? Is it another broken relationship between your parents? Was it seeing your mother get abused? We strapped ourselves in for the next disaster, knowing that we had no proof we would always recover. As a child, on nights when you and I didn't sleep together, I remember trembling, imagining life when I wasn't yours. I remember you chiding me not to use contractions when talking to white people and police. I remember believing all your lies were mistakes and forgetting those mistakes when we woke up tucked into each other. Do you hear the depth and the soul in that line? I remember believing all your lies were mistakes. Do we ever talk about Black men and their trust issues coming from partly from the fact that many of us fell in love with liars? We loved them too much to call them liars. And now on the back end, we are either dealing with liars in our romantic relationship, or we are dealing with the fact that we don't believe people can tell the truth. And when we are romantically involved with truth tellers, there's something that is broken about our compass of love that we would actually rather if they lied to us. Why would we actually rather if they lied to us? I would actually rather if you lied to me because that's the love that I'm used to. You telling me the truth is foreign. And a lot of times I don't want foreign. I want what I'm used to. If it was verbal abuse, I always want to get into an argument. I want what I used to. If it's manipulation, I become Lou that Bill Withers used me until you use me up. I want what I'm used to. If it's giving me false hope that you'll get it right this time, give me that false hope. I want what I'm used to. Do we ever talk about how so many Black men are out there and they have an inability to be in healthy relationships with truth tellers? Why? I remember believing all your lies were mistakes and forgetting those mistakes when we woke up tucked into each other. I'll forget the mistakes for you, mama, but somebody's gonna get blamed for this. Every time you said my particular kind of hard-headedness and white Mississippians' brutal desire for Black suffering were recipes for an early death, institutionalization or incarceration, I knew you were right. I just didn't care. I cared about the way you grit your teeth when you beat me for not being perfect. I cared about girls at school seeing my welts. I cared about you days and often hours before you beat me. You touched me so gently. You told me You loved me. You called me your best friend. You forgave me for losing the key to the house. You coated the ashy cracks in my face with Vaseline slick palms. You used your nubby thumbs wet with saliva to clean the sleep out of my eyes. You made me feel like the most black, beautiful boy in the history of Mississippi until you didn't. I didn't try to hurt you, you told me the last time we spoke. I don't remember hurting you as much as you remember being hurt, Key. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I don't remember everything the way that you do. I still believe you. Watch the significance of this. Watch this. Let me read that. This is his mom, quote, I didn't try to hurt you. You told me the last time we spoke. I don't remember hurting you as much as you remember being hurt, Key. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I don't remember everything the way you do, end quote. And he says to her, I still believe you. Black man, let me tell you, you can love your mama. You can love your grandmama. You can love whatever matriarchal figures in your life. And if they manipulated you and lied to you, you can love them and still acknowledge their untruths as untruth. Do you see what he's saying here? Go back, go back, go back, go back. I knew you were right. Let me skip a sentence up. Every time you said my particular kind of hard-headedness and white Mississippians' brutal desire for black suffering were recipes for an early death, institutionalization, or incarceration, I knew you were right. I knew you were right, Mama. I knew you were right, but I just didn't care. Do we ever sit and think about when black boys show up not caring? Do we ever say, well, maybe it's not their fault. Maybe it has something to do with the people who are behind them. When we see black young boys showing up careless, remember, he's 11 at this time. He'd been to casino playing his mama husband. Then experienced being the happiest black couple with her in Las Vegas. He's seen this abuse from this man and this woman at the tennis court. She is going through probably the most dangerous situation outside of the car she was abused in, gets inside of the car. And instead of running for her abuser, she puts her seatbelt off to ride off in the raggedy Mazda with him. He knows who his mama is. He tells her that we were excellent at hiding and misdirecting, swearing up and down we were naked when we were fully clothed. He understands he's in a faulty relationship, a relationship that is void of honesty. And this person that is in charge and is leading this relationship, his mother is trying to give him knowledge and wisdom to survive in other places of life. Every time you said my particular kind of hard-headedness and white Mississippians' brutal desire for black suffering. Get that. These white Mississippians had a brutal desire for black suffering, were recipes for an early death, institutionalization or incarceration. And I knew you were right, but Mama, I didn't care. Why didn't I care? Because there was something else that was taking up my brain space. There was something else that was taking up my heart space. There's something else that is plaguing the very existence that I have right now. Mama, I couldn't care about the brutal desires of white Mississippians for black suffering and that being a recipe for an early death. Why? Because this is what I cared about. I cared about the way you grit your teeth when you beat me for not being perfect. I cared about girls at school seeing my welts. I cared about you days and often hours before you beat me. You touched me so gently. You told me you loved me. You called me your best friend. You forgave me for losing the key to the house. You coated the ashy cracks in my face with Vaseline slick palms. You used your nubby thumbs with wet saliva to clean the sleep out of my eyes. You made me feel like the most beautiful black boy in the history of Mississippi until you didn't. Woo! This boy is is writing. You made me feel like the most beautiful Black boy in the history of Mississippi until you didn't. Do you understand what he's telling us here? Black men, listen up, listen up. Black men, listen up. Do you understand what he's given us here? He's saying that I know the world is brutal. My mama raised me to know that. I know that there are a ton of white people out there that are that desire my early death. I know that there's institutionalization and incarceration standing outside of my doorstep waiting to have me. But mama, I can't even turn my attention to focusing on them because I'm stuck in confusion in this complex, complicated relationship with this one line right here. How did you have so much power and so much pain wrapped up in your identity that you could make me feel like the most beautiful Black boy in the history of Mississippi until you didn't? Black man, I'm telling you, you got to read this book. There's some healing in here. What you won't be able to do is step away from here. You got to be a bold, thick-hearted mug to step away from here and still tell the lie. If you want to still tell the lie, I don't think you're going to make it through this book. This book is for those who are on the brink of or in the process of, who are in the belly of the beast of truth telling. Listen to what his mama says to him, quote, I didn't try to hurt you, end quote. You told me the last time we spoke. Here's his mama again, quote, I don't remember hurting you as much as you remember being hurt. That's because you can't feel like me. That's because the abuser will never remember inflicting as much as the inflicted remember being inflicted. I don't remember hurting you as much as you remember being hurt, Key. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I don't remember everything the way you do, end quote. And he says to her, I still believe you. What happens when we believe a lie over the truth? Because we can't stomach the idea of not being in love with an individual the same way we would if we allowed the truth to ruin the fairy tale. Let's keep going. This summer, it took me one final conversation with grandmama for me to understand that no one in our family and very few folk in the nation has any desire to reckon with the weight of where we've been, which means no one in our family and very few folk in this nation wants to be free. I asked grandmama why she stayed in Mississippi instead of running to the Midwest with the rest of her family if white folk made her so sick, and why she told so many of her stories in present tense. The land, Key, she said. We worked too hard on this land to run. Some of us, we believe the land will one day be free. I've been eating off this land my whole life. Greens, tomatoes, cucumbers, collards. You hear me? That's all I can tell you. As far as these stories, I just try to gather up all the gumption I can before I take it to the Lord. When I tell it to my children, sometimes I just be trying to put y'all where I've been. I wonder for a second about why be trying and where I've been felt far heavier than I try and what I've experienced. Because they're participatory statements, not professionalized statements. The statements seem so heavy because they bear the weight of the actual experience, not just trying to bear the communication of the experience. Listen how his grandmama said it. I just try to gather up all the gumption I can before I take it to the Lord. And when I tell it to my children, sometimes I just be trying That's the weight. The words possess the weight of what actually went on those times when she just be trying to put y'all where I've been. I asked if I could ask one more difficult question. Grandmama looked at me for the first time in our lives like she was afraid. Isn't that something? The older generations are afraid of questions, especially probing questions. You may be a part of the younger generation now, but you make enough blunders in your life. You make enough mistakes in the lives of those that you are in charge of bringing up. And one day you may have the courage to face them, but that doesn't mean you won't be afraid. One day you will be afraid of questions. She grabbed her keys and made me wheel her around to the side of the house under the thick scent of her pecan tree. Once we got there, I knelt and asked whether she minded if we talked about words, memory, emergencies, weight, and sexual violence in our family. Grandmama rubbed the graying hair sliding out from under her wig and put both palms across her frown lines. I asked her why she covered her face when she got nervous or when she laughed. I asked why she wore that fake-looking wig all the time. Choices, she murmured. I already told you. This is Grandma quote. I already told you I can't let no man, not even my grandbaby, choose my choice for me, end quote. Grandma looked past what was left of our woods. Key, I think we remembered enough for today. When I read that line, I realize how exhausting rehearsed trauma is. That you actually have more stamina in making it through the trauma a lot of times than you have the stamina to rehearse the trauma. So sometimes rehearsing trauma can be so tiring that just the very thought of thinking how to explain it can wear you out. And I think that that's why we have to learn how to add someone in to this rehearsed trauma to turn it into a victorious testimony. Rehearsed trauma doesn't get us anywhere but back into the place where the trauma happened. And sometimes it's good to go back, especially where Grandmama is right now with her grandson. Grandmama, I gotta go back to know where the family broke. So when I'm making my way forward, I will be able to do all that I can to heal us of the things in the past that we've ignored. But Grandmama, I don't want you to go back and get stuck in rehearsing trauma. The only reason I want you to go back, because I need you to show me what luggage to grab that I need to bring to the feet of Jesus. Grandma, I want to go back. This is why he asked her, do you mind if I ask you one more difficult question? I just need this one, Grandma. Grandmama, just give me this one difficult question. I'm telling you, don't touch this book if you ain't trying to run into the brick wall of confronting that pain. You can't touch this book. God, Lord Jesus. Right there in the same spot where I remember Grandma teaching me how to hang up clothes on the clothesline. She told me about not being able to vote, not pissing where she needed to piss, not eating what she needed to eat, not walking how she needed to walk, not driving what she needed to drive because she was born a poor Black girl in Scott County, Mississippi. She talked about the shame of white folk wants always trumping Black folk needs. Ain't we still there? White folks wants trumping Black folks' needs. If I could describe the slogan, "Make America Great Again," it's white folks' wants trumping Black folks' needs. Donald Trump sweeping every swing state we have, popular vote and every kind of vote. It's that idea of the white folks' wants always trumping the Black folks' needs. How do I know that? DI pushed back. Fact checking took it off Facebook. All kinds of stuff going back to the way that white folks want it and leaving out what Black folks need. Understand that there are parts. This is why we have to be easy on our parents and our grandparents, because we fail to realize that many of us are going through the same thing that they went through, but sometimes it's just camouflaged and we are distracted, not realizing, like Eddie Glaude says, they're doing it again. They are doing this shit again. They're doing it again. You hear Eddie Glaude says, my granddaddy had to worry about this. My daddy had to worry about this. I had to worry about this. And now my babies have to worry about this. What do they have to worry about? He puts it in this sentence right here. What they have to worry about is the shame of white folks' wants, always trumping Black folks' needs. Oh, my God. And the story's written way before a Trump presidency, but isn't that the perfect language? And he's not even talking about the consequences, the lived realization. He's not talking about the pain of being in it. He's talking about living in the shadows of that. That shadow is shame. Living in the shadow of racism and white supremacy for many Black people is a shame. You want to know how many Black kids ask? God, why'd you make me Black? God, why'd you give me this dark skin? It's not because something is inherently wrong with the skin. It is because they have the kind of skin that lives in the shame of white folk wants, always trumping Black folk needs. You see how much I got to exhale reading this book? She talked about how much she loved eating vegetables off her land and the fear of running north with the rest of her family during the Great Migration. Grandmama told me survival stories placed in offices, washrooms, Sunday school classrooms, parking lots, kitchens, fields, and bedrooms. She told me stories featuring her body and the white foreman at the chicken plant. Do you understand this language of, she told me stories featuring her body and the white foreman at the chicken plant. Now I can't go into Kiese's rhythm and reason on why he wrote it that way. But I can tell you the way that I read it. That when I hear the word featuring, there's a difference between featuring and starring. When I hear a feature on a rap record, when I hear a feature in a movie picture, she told me stories featuring her body and the white foreman at the chicken plant. Since the white foreman at the chicken plant had more value, his desire to feature her body was automatically something that was allowed because he was the star of the movie. He was the star of the society. Our bodies tell us so much about where we play and what role we play in society. And right now, Kiese is telling my grandmama's body was only featured in her own story. She told me stories featuring her body and the white foreman at the chicken plant. She told me about Mr. Mumford, about the deacons at our church, about the men who worked the line with her. She told me stories about her father, her uncles, her cousin, and her husband. Listen to this line. It's so tragic. It's so tragic. Listen to this line right here. I think the men folk forgot. This is grandma. Listen to this line. Quote, I think the men folk forgot, she said near the end, that I was somebody's child. Men, the next time you decide to create a scene in this world that features a woman's body and is starring your lust, your power, your unwillingness to hear the word no, your derogatory desire, just understand that one day prior, in decades past, your grandmama, your great grandmama, your mama went through a situation where while the outside of her was silent, the inside of her was screaming the kind of scream that makes ears burn when we hear it, the kind of scream that pierces you to the core of your soul. Your grandmama and your mama was screaming. I think men folk forgot that I was somebody's child. And he talks about that later in this book. We'll get to it, about his misconception from growing up in society without a proper teacher, of him believing a deceitful agenda of how women should be treated. But could you imagine sitting at the feet of your grandmother and her telling you stories featuring her body and the white foreman at the chicken plant? She told me about Mr. Mumford, about the deacons at our church. Now notice the white foreman at the chicken plant, Mr. Mumford, the deacon at the church. There is no high road that we are winding up to. They are all in the similar place of how they regard her body. Grandmama's body just started laughing. Why? Because sometimes you got to laugh just to stop from crying. That's me adding it up in there. Grandmama's body just started laughing. And my body laughed too. I'm black and I'm a woman, she finally said. I love me some Jesus. That's who I always been. And I ain't afraid to shoot somebody trying to harm me and mine. You hear me? I am okay because I pray every day. Some days the tears just be pouring out my eyes, Key. But grandmama is too heavy to blow away or drown in tears made because somebody didn't see me as a somebody worth respecting. You hear me? Grandma, I keep talking to him. Ain't nothing in the world worse than looking at your children drown and knowing ain't nothing you can do because you scared that if you get to trying to save them, they might see that you can't swim either. Did you hear that? Ain't nothing in the world worse than looking at your children drowning, knowing ain't nothing you can do because you scared that if you get to trying to save them, that they might see that you can't swim either. I just finished having a conversation with someone about how millennials, Gen Xers, and boomers are divided generationally. And one of the things that I keep hearing come out of the mouths of millennials is, man, our parents ain't never teach us nothing. They ain't never sit us at the table to show us this, or they didn't tell us that the money was low, or they didn't teach us financial literacy. And we were having a conversation where we just trying to figure this out together. And I said to him, and he was saying to me, and I was saying to him, do you realize that maybe they didn't teach us because all the shame that was involved with the lesson? Grandmama just said it. Ain't nothing in the world worse than looking at your children drowning, than looking at your babies that you thought you would put on a different playing field, a different level of a playing field to accomplish what they need to accomplish, and looking at them drowning, knowing that there's nothing you can do because you're scared that if you get to trying to save them, they might see that you can't swim either. That shame. I'm too scared to show them how inadequate I am to save them from the very things that they're going through. Lord Jesus, don't you start, don't you start, don't you start, don't you start. They might see that you can't swim either, but I am okay. You hear me? I heard Grandmama, but I saw and smelled with diabetes left of her right foot. Grandmama hadn't felt her foot, controlled her bowels, or really tasted her food in over a decade. Hadn't felt her foot, controlled her bowels, or really tasted her food in over a decade. But Grandmama still got words of wisdom that we can sit and listen to and begin to frame life by. Why? Because how Grandmama is not able to feel her foot, control her bowels, or really taste her food. What got her to that point is life lessons we need to know. This Sunday, like every Sunday before it, Grandmama wanted me to know it could all be so much worse. Like you, Grandmama beat the worst of white folk and the mean machinations of men every day she was alive. But y'all taught me indirectly that unacknowledged scars accumulated in battles won often hurt more than battles lost. I believe you, I told her. I will always believe you, even when I know you lying. I don't know if that statement is a state of respect or a state of torment. I'm still pondering if that statement is a high level of respect or a devious level of torment. Love will make you do some crazy things. I believe you, I told her. I'll always believe you, even when I know you're lying. The reason why I'm wondering if it's torment is because it's an idea that not only belongs to his relationship with his grandmama, it's also an idea that belongs to his relationship with his mother. Will it become an idea that belongs to his relationship with all women? If it does, it's something that started out as being an idea of respect for his grandmother, a cover up for the negligence of his mother, and a tool of torment for any other woman he gets involved with in his life. So, in his desire to deal graciously with the brokenness of his grandmama, in his desire to understand that she is scared of jumping in the water of life trying to save him, and showing him that she can't save him because she can't swim herself, that she's so scared that instead of him making her face that fear, he desires to say, Grandmama, you can tell me anything when that fear starts to encroach upon who you are, and I'm still going to believe you. I don't know. I'm close to saying torment. I don't know if that is a deep level of respect that I can't understand, or a deep level of torment that I've set a boundary up against. But either way, it's not sitting well with me. It sounds good and it reads well, but there's something about it that is fragmented, that is broken, that is distorted, that is malfunction, that is malnutrition. It's something about it that is dehydrated. It's something about that statement right there that leaves us desiring more, that is making us ask the question, if I decide to live life like that with individuals in my life who I love, am I getting the better end of the stick, or am I getting a tool of tormentors? I believe you, I told her. I always believe you, even when I know you lying. I asked grandmama if she had been saying bend, B-E-N-D, or Ben, B-E-E-N, all day. Ben, she said, B-E-E-N, like where you been. And after all the places you and your mama been, y'all way more than mother and son. And y'all done way more drowning than any one of y'all want to admit. Grandmama was right. Grandmama was wrong. You and I have never been a family of cabinets filled with Band-Aids, alcohol, and peroxide. We have never been a family of tuck-ins and bedtime stories any more than we've been a family of consistent bill money, pantries, full refrigerators, washers, and dryers. We have always been a bent Black Southern family of laughter, outrageous lies, and books. The presence of all those books, all that laughter, all our lies, and your insistence I read, reread, write, and revise in those books made it so I would never be intimidated or easily impressed by words, punctuation, sentences, paragraphs, chapters, and white space. You gave me a Black Southern laboratory to work with words. In that space, I learned how to assemble memory and imagination when I most wanted to die. Let me read that again. In that space that she created. But look what the space is made of. We have always been a bent Black Southern family of laughter, outrageous lies, and books. The presence of all those books, all that laughter, all our lies, and your insistence I read, reread, write, and revise in those books made it so I would never be intimidated or easily impressed by words, punctuation, sentences, paragraphs, chapters, and white space. You gave me a Black Southern laboratory to work with words. In that space, I learned how to assemble memory and imagination when I most wanted to die. Notice he didn't say, I know how to remember the accurate truth of what's going on. He said, I know how to assemble memory, how to take a piece from here and a piece from there and to put it here and to put it there. And imagination when I most wanted to die. That's a question we got to ask ourselves, like brothers. In your journey of remembering for restoration, in your journey of remembering to heal alongside of your redemption, in your journey of remembering to become the man you want to be, is your memory an authentic memory or an assembled memory? Is it authentic that you're taking the good, you're taking the bad, you're mixing through it, you're walking through it, you're lifting what's heavy, you're setting aside that which is light. You are working yourself through all of the trauma and the pain that once was there. You are allowing yourself to feel joy and happiness that was there also in the midst of it. You're not telling yourself a lie about anything. You're not hiding the truth. You're not taking this part and that part and remembering to be better or worse than what it actually was. Is your memory authentic or is it assembled? Assembled has the idea of it being scattered. That maybe it's easier for us to hold so many of these memories in our mind broken up in pieces because we can get little glimpses of what really happened without needing to focus or without having to see the full picture. Why do I think he's using it that way? Because he says assembled memory and imagination when I most wanted to die. They kind of are like the same thing. An assembled memory is probably only one step before imagination, because assembled memory is me taking something that actually happened and putting it together in a way that makes it seem better than what it really was. Me taking my imagination is making up something that didn't happen, but both of them are trying to get me to the same place. They are saving me another day on this earth when I most wanted to die. Your gifts of reading, rereading, writing, and revision are why I started this book 30 years ago on grandmama's porch. In spite of those gifts, or maybe because of those gifts, it's important for me to accept that, like all American children, I've been brutally dishonest with you. And like all American parents, you've been brutally dishonest with me. A few months ago, I was standing behind you with $10 I stole from a scared Black woman who would never steal $10 from me. Now he's fast forwarding to when he's grown now. He actually talks about this situation where this gambling habit has lasted all the way through his life, and him and his mother end up in the same casino. He sees her from the back, but he doesn't approach her. He's at the casino because he's at one of the lowest points of his life where there was somebody that was honest with him. Remember that inability to bear with people who are honest with us in our lives? When we find love bonds with those who we allowed to lie to us, he's with someone who was honest with him. And to feel that pastime that he shared with his first girlfriend, with his first wife, with the first woman he felt like he was in a couple with, his mother. There's something going on with I'm talking about Black boys because I know Black boys. I'm called to Black boys and Black men. I know this goes on in other places, but there's something that is scary about how Black boys become husbands to their mothers. How Black boys cannot be the object of their mother's affection and love sometimes without them being the image of who their mother wants to be loved by in a romantic manner. There's something there, and he's saying, Mama, I'm grown now. A few months ago, I was standing behind you with $10 I stole from a scared Black woman who would never steal $10 from me. You were sitting in front of a slot machine looking nervously over both shoulders as you spent your last bill money. We were 1,600 miles from home. You did not know I was there. If you turned around, I knew you'd talk about how much weight I gained, not where our bodies have been since we last seen each other. I wanted to tap you on your shoulder and ask if you were ready to go home. On the way home, I wanted to ask you if you were deserving of different kinds of liberation, different modes of memory, different policy, different practices, and different relationships to honesty. I wanted to ask you if we were also deserving of different books. I am writing a different book to you because books, for better and worse, are how we got here. And I'm afraid of speaking any of this to your face. I would try to kill anyone who harmed or spoke ill of you. You would try to kill anyone who harmed or spoke ill of me, but neither of us would ever, under any circumstance, be honest about yesterday. This is how we are taught to love in America. Our dishonesty, cowardice, and misplaced self-righteousness, far more than how much or how little we weigh, is part of why we are suffering. In this way, and far too many others, we are studious children of this nation. We do not have to be this way. I wanted to write a lie. You wanted to read a lie. I wrote this to you instead. This is how we are taught to love in America. Our dishonesty, cowardice, and misplaced self-righteousness, far more than how much or how little we weigh, is a part of why we are suffering. we collectively as Americans. In this way and far too many others, we are studious children of this nation. This is where I believe Kanye West, we're all liars. But we don't have to be this way. What do we have to do in order not to be this way? It's in the last 3 lines of this introduction. I wanted to write a lie. You wanted to read a lie. But I wrote this to you instead. What is this? It's small t truth. We'll talk about that more next week when we pick up.